All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been quite a day as we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show. This is our second hour, new time slot, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific, and this is the second hour of our 2-hour show. Thanks for being with us. Lots of new developments out of Baltimore, as we have been discussing right along. The Washington Post reporting that another prisoner in the police van that carried Freddie Gray in Baltimore, that prisoner says that he heard Gray trying to, what he believed to be, hurt himself by thrashing around in the van. We also have a report from ABC News in Baltimore that the medical examiner has concluded that the injuries to Freddie Gray occurred in the van, not at the hands of the police during any arrest. So it's going to be very interesting as time goes on to see exactly how this plays out. But what the mayor of Baltimore, after all of her outlandishly, I'd say amateurish moves, but I don't think they were amateurish. They were the moves of a calculated mayor who was dead set on making sure that the protesters and the rioters could riot and burn and destroy and loot. And even after all that, even getting caught but by saying she was going to do that, even though she denied she said it, she still goes to Al Sharpton's National Action Network, stands in front of his background with NAN, and talks about how justice will be served for Freddie Gray. I don't think it was an appropriate venue for her while the investigation is continuing to align herself with Al Sharpton, but there's really not much of a difference between her and Al Sharpton if you stop and you think about it. We also have news on the Clinton Foundation. It appears that not all foreign donations were reported after all while Hillary was Secretary of State, because many of the donations made to a subsidiary or an arm of the Clinton Foundation, guess what? Oops! Oops! What difference does it make? They forgot to report or didn't report these donations. And of course, we've learned in recent days that approximately 10% of the $2 billion donated to the Clinton Foundation actually goes to help people, which is outlandish. And as if that wasn't enough, we have Iran acting up, boarding ships in the Straits of Hormuz, and we have American ships that are there. Now we're told that they will escort U.S. flagships in the Persian Gulf, this after the hostile Iranian actions. I could see it now. I could see it now. Iran stops one of our ships, we stop. They board one of our ships, and then President Obama says, you see? You see how important it is to make sure this country doesn't get a nuclear weapon? You imagine how dangerous this situation would be, Iran boarding our ships, if they had a nuclear weapon. Oh, I could see that happening. Don't laugh. This is Barack Obama we're talking about. All right, joining us now is Tom Tancredo, former congressman from the great state of Colorado and former president, candidate for president back in 2008, and the author of In Mortal Danger, The Battle for America's Border and Security. And Congressman, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to join you again.
Always great to talk to you. All right, so let's take this. Let's start at the end and work our way forward. You wrote a piece talking about, or if you didn't write it, certainly it's about Iran. Address the situation here. Yeah, it was your piece in The Hill, I believe, talking about the Congress hearing from the organizer out of Paris of a Iranian resistance. Very, very wonderful person, and it's great that the Congress has invited this person to speak.
Yeah, the organization, it's called the MEK, but it is just as you say. This is an organization of Iranians that, and they don't even like being called that, by the way. They'd rather be called Persians, but they hate the mullahs. They want nothing more than to go back into Iran. They're exiled. And Madame Rajavi, who is the lady to whom you refer, is the head of it. A woman is the head of it. That tells you something about the nature of their organization. And they despise it. The Iranian mullahs, the government there now, absolutely despise this organization. They know it's the greatest threat internally that they can face, and so they've done everything to try to stop it. I have for years championed these people by saying, you know, there are people who would rather, who don't want us to deal with it. They'd rather deal with it themselves. There are enough of them, and they're highly competent. They want to go back into Iran. They want to hassle it out. We don't have to do it, but at least we should listen to them about what the nature of that regime is all about. And almost all of the information we have, Steve, about the nuclear program in Iran comes from this group.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful group, and I know they have their annual event in Paris coming up in June,
Yeah.
And that's a huge event. All right, let's talk about the ships and the aggressive nature of Iran while they're negotiating with us. But none of it matters, Congressman. None of it matters. Not the terrorism, not the killing of Americans, not the threatening of Israel, not the threatening of the United States, not the aggressive nature against the foreign ships in the Persian Gulf. None of it matters. It's in a vacuum, these nuclear talks.
Because, of course...
And by the way, I'm sorry, I left out our 3 hostages that Iran is holding.
That's right. It's because the President of the United States is not opposed to the intentions of Iran. I mean, I know how that might sound to people, but I am convinced that that is true. I am convinced that he indeed holds the same sort of worldview as do the people in Iran, the mullahs there. I believe he is much more sympathetic to their worldview than to ours in the West. I know how that sounds, but I'm telling you, every single thing he has done, all the information, if you could just write a book about this and leave out the fact that he's the President of the United States and just say all of the things he has said and done, you would come to the conclusion this guy is on their side. I'll tell you another thing, and I wrote this a couple of weeks ago, got lots of nasty responses, but I would not be surprised. I'd be upset but not surprised if at some point in time when Israel decides it has to go it alone, that there are no options, that Iran is on the brink of developing a nuclear device that they're going to use against Israel, and Israel is going to take some action, I would not be surprised that this president threatens Israel and says, don't do it or else, and would actually be more inclined to use the military, our military, against Israel than against Iran.
Yeah, you know what? I got to tell you, I couldn't agree with you more. It's sad to say this about an American president.
I could say a thing like this about a president of the United States.
Absolutely.
Who would think it?
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sure, and reports have indicated over the years that warnings to that effect have been relayed to Israel.
Yeah. I'll bet you that's true. I bet you that's what's one of the reasons why. I mean, you know, when Bibi comes over here, he's walking on eggshells. He's petrified about really making too much of an issue out of the confrontation he's had with Obama. But I just really believe that if it comes down to it, well, Obama has said it. Remember, he said. Now, he was talking about domestic violence and that sort of thing. But he said in his book, if it gets ugly, that's the way he put it. If it gets ugly, I'll come down on the side of the Muslims.
All right, let's talk about very quickly the revelations of we got a minute. The Clinton administration, the Clinton Foundation, this subsidiary, the foreign donations. It went to a let's see, I want to say the Boston Globe saying that a huge affiliate of the charity took foreign donations, didn't report it, forgot to report it, whatever. It doesn't end, does it? Every day, it's another piece.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was funny because Lanny Davis was on television, of course, saying, hey, a couple of $1 million, come on.
I heard that. Doesn't mean anything, yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It's, now, I think Bloomberg reported there were 1,100 contributions made by foreign governments that were not reported. I mean, I'm wondering, hey, 1,100 contributions.
But here it is, Congressman. What difference does it make?
More.
That's the universal answer. Hey, great talking to you, sir, as always. Thank you very much.
See you, buddy.
Take care. Michael Myers, New York Civil Rights Coalition head, will be here to talk about Baltimore and beyond. But first, folks, we brought back our viewer call-in segment, but we need you to be proactive. If you want to participate in the segment, you can't wait until we have the segment. You have to reach out to us first, like right now. So sit down, write an email. Email me at, there it is on your screen, callsteve@newsmax.com. Email callsteve@newsmax.com. We want to hear from you, so do it now.